here's Horowitz playing, and she's feeding him chocolate. So I said to myself, that's the answer. Chocolate, you have to eat chocolate before you play. So the next performance, I downed some bars of chocolate, promptly got sugar shock. I was more nervous than I was ever. I'm Seymour Berndteinㆍ.
I'm so thrilled to welcome you to our show here.
Thank you. Well, I've seen your segments a lot. And I always wondered why you never contacted me. Is that here you are?
Well, I was waiting for your 90th birthday, which you just celebrated this week, so congratulations. I understand that the city of New York made a formal proclamation at which 20
Isn't this amazing? I received an email from the council of New York City, and they said, we want to celebrate your 90th birthday by making a proclamation on you. And I asked everybody, what's a proclamation? What is that? I had no idea what that was. You know what it is, don't you? I mean, it's a certificate.
They have language that says, whereas, ...
That's right. And my whole biography was it was given to me Thursday in a community center on Columbus Avenue. And all my pupils and friends were there, and 28 people spoke. And Michael Kimmelman, he's my pupil from the New York Times. He said to me, Seymour, they don't even do that when royalty dies. There are never 28 people speaking. So here I was alive, very much alive, to enjoy it all.
What was it like to receive that type of recognition at this stage of your life?
Well, I can only be grateful. I tell everybody, don't believe all the stories that older people tell you about getting old, how dreadful it is. I tell them that, for me, life is beginning at 90.
So if in the film you talk about, at some point in your life, feeling that you had to retire from performing, and probably you thought that that was the last you would do it on account of the nerves, which was one of the subjects of the film. Is that right?
Well, actually, there was a gross misunderstanding about why I retired. Naturally, stage fright is part of what it is that we do. You're a performer. You live with it, don't you?
It's my biggest issue.
I don't know of any great performer who hasn't suffered terrible stage fright. The greatest example of this was Vladimir Horowitz. It got so bad that he had to retire for 12 years.
This sense of struggling with nerves, was that there from your earliest days and earliest performances?
Not when I was a child. I didn't experience it at all. But as I got older and got responsible and realized what I was doing, I was recreating these masterpieces of minds, some of the greatest minds that ever walked the face of the earth. What a responsibility. That's when I started to get stage fright.
With only one exception, everyone we've spoken to has had this as a major
Do they
struggle.
admit it?
They do.
Well, usually musicians are ashamed of it. And everybody feels, their stage fright is much more severe than anyone else's. And of course it's not true. So you speak about it with your friends. Well, I didn't have any friends to speak about it with. But I tried to handle it. I even tried to eat the right foods on the day of the performance. Then something really crazy was going on. Research, all kinds of solutions to ease it. So I knew the head of the Steinway rental department in the basement of Steinway. And he told me Horowitz was coming down to choose a piano. He said, I'm going to leave the door open a little bit and you can observe what is going on. So there came Vladimir Horowitz with his wife She was pretty much of a monster, like her father. Toscanini was a monster, you know.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. So here's Horowitz playing, and she's feeding him chocolate. So I said to myself, that's the answer. Chocolate. You have to eat chocolate before you play. So the next performance, I downed some bars of chocolate, promptly got sugar shock. I was more nervous than I was ever. And then I read a violinist, I forgot her name. She sweated from nerves before a performance. So she rubbed egg white into her hands. I said, that's the answer. So I took egg white in a jar to a concert hall once, and in the green room, I rubbed the egg white into my hand, and it was terribly sticky. And I went out and I played the Bach Busoni Shakan. And there was an omelet on the keyboard. And I started to get stuck into the egg white. It was a nightmare. So that piece lasted for 15 minutes, right? I had to go backstage, and the stagehand came out with a washcloth and had to wash the keyboard. Look here, nothing helps stage fright except two things: preparation and performing experience. Nothing else helps, in my opinion.
Do you feel that stage fright can be influenced by our relationship with ourselves and being at peace with ourselves?
Of course, you and I discussed this. So then you can go into psychotherapy. You can get psychological help, right? Now, this brings up a very important subject. And I have to quote Ethan Hawke about this, because he and I, you know how we met? We met over dinner, and he actually confessed to crippling stage fright when he acts. Well, since I wrote a lot about it and suffered myself, I was able to help him a lot. I let him know that he shouldn't be ashamed of it. It's a sign of responsibility. And I also told him a story about Michael Rabin. He was a famous violinist, you know. He died in his 30s. He was one of America's great violinists. Ethan Hawke, when he told me that he suffers crippling stage fright, I said to him, what form does it take? Isn't that a good question? So he said, I have a feeling I'm going to stop talking. You know, that's like we're going to have a memory slip. I wonder what the next note is. Train wreck. We don't know what the next note is. So I remembered this story that Michael Rabin's accompanist told me. I knew him. Michael Rabin suddenly had a phobia that he was going to drop his bow. And it started to adversely affect his performances. So one night, he arranged with his accompanist, Mitchell Andrew, that at this point in the piece, he was on purpose going to let go of his bow, which he did. The audience froze, and Michael picked up his bow and started to play the piece from the beginning, and he said to himself, my goodness, I'm alive. And he got over his phobia. So I told this to Ethan, and a few months later he said, I had a memory slip on the stage, and I let out a blood-curdling scream, and then I went on with the dialogue. And at the end of the performance, everybody thought the scream was part of the show. And he got over his phobia. See, he did it on purpose. He acted out the very thing that he was most afraid of.
would there be an equivalent for a pianist?
Well, let's say you could on purpose have a memory slip and take your hands off the piano and say something to the audience. Actually, I saw this in action. You know, Mieczysław Warszawski?
Yes.
Now picture this. He's 90 years old. He's my age, right? And he's playing the last 3 sonatas of Beethoven. He comes. And stops. And so makes another go at it. So, and he goes like this. And the audience just loses it. Everybody laughed. Or maybe a full minute. Then he started again and he went through it.
I guess these little expressive devices.
I don't think he did that on purpose. He just forgot. He had a memory slip.
In your performing career as a pianist, which you had a very established career, which was well received and well reviewed, and then at some point you stopped. If one of your students came to you at that point and said they wanted to stop, what would you tell them?
I would have to figure out what age they were, if they were going to say that to me. And then I would ask them, and why do you wish to stop? You have to have a good reason for stopping. If you're going to replace something so vital like that, that can actually lead toward the integration of your personality, as I believe it can, then it has to be replaced with something that's as vital as that.
And if they were faced with crippling stage fright, what would you tell them?
Well, you just learn how to get over it like I did.
Mm-hmm.
You're not so special. If you're telling me that you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't face the audience anymore. You're not so special. Your fears aren't so special.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody suffers that. So you want to be a coward and give up? Are you able to play well in spite of your nervousness? And you say, no, it's ruining my performance. Well, find out why it's ruining your performance. Don't miss out on that opportunity to overcome a challenge, because then you can really learn to love yourself and regard yourself. If you can walk across a stage and play the way you would like to play, that's a conquest, a human conquest. That's what I would tell the people. Then the rest is up to them.
And this conquest of the challenge, do you feel you've achieved that?
I think so. Oh, but personally?
You personally?
I confess that I did. It was only when I was able to play well in spite of my nerves. I can feel it right now on the stage of the 92nd Street Y. I'm the only one who knew this is my last recital, right? I start with my own transcription of the organ toccata in fugue in D minor. Right? I got to that point, I said, every note that I play is coming closer to my liberation. Then I heard myself just playing very beautifully. I said, you know, you've achieved something. You can now call it to a halt. At this stage of your life, now give it up and devote your time to being creative. So I didn't tell anyone, I didn't even tell my mother. And when I told everybody, they all had nervous breakdowns. You can't do this, how can you do this? You have a responsibility to the public. I said, well, my responsibility now is to be creative. So this is what I feel about being creative. When we give concerts, like some of the great artists today, That's not being creative. That's being recreative. Being creative means that you write down a series of notes on the manuscript paper, and then you go on from there. You compose, right?
Yes.
Or you write the word "the," and you finish the sentence. That's being creative. Or you paint, right? So my personal feeling is that in terms of developing ourselves fully, the combination of being recreative and creative, that's the trick.
Seymour, you recounted a story on the 92nd Street Y as being terrifying. Do you also have a memory of a performance that was unexpectedly blissful?
The one I gave for Ethan Hawke's theater group.
And you were how old at that point?
3 years ago.
And what did that feel like? Why was that a special moment?
That was particularly amazing to me because look here. Ethan is about to make the documentary and has a meeting with me, right? In the same apartment, by the way, where I met him. We're sitting opposite a dining room table. He's sitting there with his wife. He said, "Now, Seymour, I'm going to ask you a question and you don't have to say yes. You know, I'm a member of a theater group and we don't know very much about classical music. I know you haven't given a recital in 37 years, but would you consider giving a short recital and talk about the music for my theater group?" You see that white umbrella? I turned ash and said, "Oh my God, he's asking me to go back to the life that I gave up." That's my first impression. You know, all of this went like seconds. It seemed like forever. What is he asking me to do this for? I know why. He's going to concentrate on my teaching in the documentary. And he's afraid that the audience is going to hold forth to the old stupid adage, those who can do and those who can't teach. And he doesn't want me to go that route. So if the audience sees me play, they won't think I'm a coward, that I really actually stuck with it. So I heard myself say, "All right, I'll do it." So what did I do? The meeting ended, and I went home, and I knew all the repertoire that I was going to do immediately. And I started to practice 8 hours a day, like I was going to give my New York debut. How do you get over not playing in public for 37 years? You tell me. If you don't practice 8 hours a day, you're not going to survive. Okay. Now, why don't you ask me how it went?
How did it go?
Now, it's the day of the concert. You know where the concert was? In the rotunda of Steinway.
We filmed there, in fact.
I chose this unbelievable piano, almost as beautiful as the one I'm going to own, this one. So, he said, "Don't come at 7:30 because they're going to set up cameras and everything." His theater group, all these famous actors and actresses were there. So my friend picked me up in a taxi. And you know the rotunda of Steinway looks on 57th Street. And there's a picture window in front of the piano.
You can just walk
So
by.
I looked through the picture window and I saw the piano is enveloped in the sunlight. There are lights. They're putting microphones inside the piano, in the balcony. I freaked out. I absolutely freaked out. I said, Well, you know, it's enough to give a recital after 37 years, but to film it for posterity, I'm going to die.
Mm-hmm.
I made up my mind, I'll just have a heart attack and I'll die. So I said, all right, I'll go into Steinway, I'll die there. What better place for a musician
A good place to end.
So I walked in, you know how musicians are, they're dying inside. Hello, how are you? And
yes, you smile and inside.
And nobody knows at all that you're dying inside. So, and now Ethan, the movie starts. And I'm sitting on an armchair, you know, on the arm of an armchair. And Seymour hasn't played for 37 years. You know what it says in the documentary. He can wait a couple of more minutes, but I want to tell you how I met him. And so, and I'm dying there. All of a sudden, in the middle of his talking, a calm came over me. It went like this. All the anxiety went out of my head.
Why?
What is this all about? I couldn't believe it. Now it's time, I'm going to the piano, I'm going to play a recital. Deathly calm.
Where did that come from?
I'm going to tell you in a minute. Now the recital's over, I can't believe it. Unspliced, mind you. No splicing. Did you hear the recital on the DVD? Isn't it good? I know I told you I'm playing better. So Ethan and I walk on 57th Street arm in arm toward the Russian tea room. He was going to take me to the Russian tea room. And the camera's following us. Conquering heroes. He was scared to death I wasn't going to succeed. You know, it's dangerous of him to do that. So now the next day I said, no, how is this possible? Here I think I'm going to die 1 minute and I'm successful the next. And I said, I know why I did that. I was not going to leave Ethan down. I realized when you do something for someone else, it temporarily distracts you from your own vulnerability. That's what it does. You do it for someone else. The ego ceases to exist. You're not important. Ethan is important now. I'm not going to let him down. That's what did it. I didn't realize that that was happening, but that's the only explanation that I can give. Can you give another explanation? Of course I was prepared, but that I don't think that would only account for it. I could play well in spite of my nerves, right?
So Seymour, 100 years from now, when we're all gone, or you might be around.
I don't intend to be gone.
Yes.
But what do you want me to do when you're gone?
Yes. Well, that sort of negates my question. How would you like to be remembered? As a pianist? As a teacher?
As a person.
And
I want to be remembered for everything that I'm trying to project now, and that is in terms of human relationships, because that's what life is all about. We're relating to other people. We want to give the best of ourselves to other people and make them feel good about themselves. That's what I want to be remembered about doing.
Seymour, thank you so much for being on our show. It's been such a delight and a truly moving experience to hear your life stories and your wisdom. And I hope that we'll meet again soon, off camera or on.
Thank you so much, Salt.
Thank you so much.
Is it all over?
It's all over.
Okay.